My purpose is not to frighten you, but to make you aware of what is happening around us. It is truly later than we think. Yeah.
Panic alert. 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 Panic alert.
Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames and messieurs, brothers and sisters, comrades, and other strangers, welcome to Stream for the Ages. Oh my goodness, we have so many people in the chat already. The Panicans are stacking up. I see the Panicans and the Patriots stacking up the chat for this epic conversation, the meeting of the minds. Of course, we have Matthew King-Pilled Erickson and the man of the hour, Tom Luongo from Guns, Goats, and Guns, Goats, and Guns, Gold,
Goats and Guns. Gold, Goats, and Guns.
I had one job. I have only said one job, and I screw it up every single time. Sorry, Tom.
I've got one job on this ship, and I'm going to do it. Sigourney Weaver. Right.
Just bailing it out. Ladies and gentlemen, we, of course, here to talk about, what are we talking about? We're talking about the Trump world order that has been manifesting. This isn't just my term. This is this is a term that's been bandied about. I believe there was a steering committee article put out, basically quoting Trump's world order. And oh my God, we're all screwed. This is coming from the top people. So when I hear from the peanut gallery that there is no plan, there is no plan to troost, that we're all screwed, that it's all because of the people in the Middle East, or all this and that and the other thing. I just keep looking to what the Big Evil Corp says, and Big Evil Corp doesn't seem to be happy. And maybe I'm too basic, but basically, if Big Evil Corp's upset, that's a good day for me. So here, discuss all the wins and how you should just truce the plan and calm down and maybe enjoy yourself a little bit. Matthew and Tom, thank you again, gentlemen, for being here. Where would you gentlemen like to start?
The first thing I'd like to do is reach out and say, hello, Matt. Good to meet you finally after many a year of kind of passing ships in the Twitter night and all of that happy jazz. Great. When Jason said I can get the three of us onto a stream together, I was like, dude, I'm having dental work in the morning, but I wouldn't miss this one. So we're like one last kick at the podcast can before, I have to get rid of my baby teeth and move on with my life and become an adult finally. So
the world,
Likewise.
if you experience the world stop spinning tomorrow, what's your surgery, Tom?
9:15.
Or so around 9:30. If the world stops spinning, it's just because Tom Luongo can't speak for a few days. So
or somebody or a cop, put their force me to put my hands behind my back, one or the other.
Yeah.
So.
Say it was Israel. Say it was Israel, Tom. Put it down. Write it down. Say it was Israel.
What? I like pastrami. Get out of yourself. Like, I like pastrami on a bagel. What? I'm from New York. Like, at the end of the day, I'm an Italian from New York. That means that I'm an honorary Jew. Like,
right.
Fuck off.
It sometimes is very difficult to tell the difference.
It really is. Yeah. Well, that was the thing. Like, it's really funny. Like years ago when we first started hitting zero hedge and started becoming this thing that people think that is some other version of me. I got a report from Dexter White about what the opinion of me on 4chan was, and which was hilarious. They said he's really great. He's a little Jewy. And I went, yeah, fair. I laughed my ass off, and then and I took a sip off my coffee and I pulled off my cigar, and I went back to work.
See, we're actually, Tom, you can verify this. We're old enough to remember when it was the Greeks. The Greeks were the Jews of the day back in the 70s and 80s. Like you always wanted to have the Greek accountant. I knew many Greek accountants. That was who you wanted on your team.
But you still want Greek accountants, you want, yeah, absolutely. So. So I don't know. Like, I don't know where you guys want to start. Clearly, there is no plan, and we have nothing to talk about.
We have to trust the plan of the podcast. We have to trust the plan of the itinerary. I just got to say the smoke
I think,
effect.
Matt, you're on mute.
Am I muted?
Are you on mute?
Can't hear me?
Nope. You should be okay.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you.
I can't.
Okay.
I couldn't hear her. I still can't hear her.
Well, that's strange. Can the people?
Oh, that's odd. See,
Can
StreamYard.
the people here? See,
this is the problem. StreamYard.
we can hear you, Matt. We can hear
Okay.
you. So
They
I'm
hear
not
me.
sure.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, I was going to say that.
Tom, you
How about I
still
leave
can't hear
and-
him?
Nope. How about I leave and come back? I'll be right back. You
Yeah,
guys
sure.
talk amongst yourselves. I'll leave and come back.
That's very weird. They can hear everyone. I was just going to say that the smoke in the background is. I hadn't noticed
With
it
Tom-
until just now, and with Tom smoking, it's so perfect ambiance in the background.
We're in the fog of war, Matt. That's the effect we're going for. All right, Matthew. You have a lot to answer for, sir. You over on King Pilled, especially over on the Astrolabe, do a lot of Troosting continuously,
There it is.
and of course you've taken some slings and arrows because of this. Where's the plan right now? Let's just jump right to Iran okay. So this is where I said where do you want to start? Because we could start from SOFR and LIBOR, right? That's really where a lot of this ends up starting from. If you want to take it, it's a big giant timeline with City of London. Right. We can go back 1,000 years, right?
Right.
But essentially, where I jumped into the narrative that you were laying out, Tom, was the going from LIBOR over to SOFR. So maybe you can briefly,
sure,
as briefly as
if
you can,
possible, right?
Lay that track down, because then I think this is where people are starting to miss things. And I'll just say this, because a lot of people are like myself have armchair data analysis, but what we confuse oftentimes data and information. We have loads of information now available to us, but very little data. And what I mean by data is confirmable, actionable events, things that people have done. It is certainly, this is the thing is done, the ink is dried, and now there are effects. That's what I try to restrict myself to, because once you get into the narrative field and what people are talking about, well, they just change these things on the fly. And if the analysis is Trump lies, it's like, yep,
that's a fact.
Congratulations. Yeah,
congratulations.
He does lie. That's a data point. Yes, he does lie like everybody else, and they will change the story 5 times in a day if it suits their needs. Okay, move on. Right.
Well, welcome to geopolitics. Like, okay, welcome to international relations. Welcome to the world. So for the uninitiated, I've been on Jason's show a couple times, but for the uninitiated, it's really quite simple. Coming out of World War II, we went on the Bretton Woods Standard, and during Bretton Woods, there was the rise of what was the offshore dollar market, known as the euro dollar market. It was built during the 50s and the 60s, where as we were rebuilding the world and reflating the world by sending dollars out to rebuild Europe and everywhere else that had been bombed during World War II, all these dollars wound up in bank accounts around the world, and eventually they weren't just sitting in central bank reserves, they were sitting as bank reserves and bank deposits to get bridges rebuilt and roads rebuilt and and factories and shoe shine trees and all the rest of it, everything that goes into rebuilding a society that's been bombed to hell and gone. Well, that gives rise to a whole bunch of money that's making its way around the world, and it eventually takes on a life of its own, because it's now that money itself can be a source of lending, which is what we call the shadow banking system, right? Any banking like activity, any money movement, lending and whatnot that happens outside of the purview of national bank regulators or outside of the purview of the central banks, you have to call the shadow banking system, and that's where the most of the eurodollar system starts and where it exists. And once you understand that the eurodollar markets are an order of magnitude larger than the domestic dollar markets, you realize very quickly that the eurodollar has been in charge of American foreign policy, monetary policy, fiscal policy, and everything else since the 1960s. It's what caused the breakdown of the Bretton Woods Agreement. It's what caused and affect the run on the gold, the U.S. sovereign gold, and eventually Nixon had to do the defensive thing, and I know that's heresy to most libertarians in the audience, the defensive thing to stop the draining of the gold out of our sovereign reserves in August of 1971. I have had to come full circle on understanding what that was all about. During that time, you have this rise of the offshore dollar system, and then those dollars need to be priced. People want to lend in those dollars. They're sitting in bank accounts. They want to make money off of that money. That money wants to do something. Well, until you have a benchmark lending rate that can be tradable, or that we can build a futures market around, we are a forwards market around, and everything else. Eventually, the whole thing gets financialized and has to humans do what humans do, which is they try to coordinate the supply of dollars with the demand of dollars through time, creating forward curves and futures markets and everything else. Eventually, you have to figure out what's the price of a dollar in the offshore dollar market going to be, and that has to be set on a daily basis, because previous to our everybody's lives in this 24/7 365 quote screen era. We didn't have that back in the 70s. Hell, we didn't have that in the 90s. Okay. And so that's why things like the gold fix and the London fix for the dollar, gold, silver, aluminum, and everything else came into effect. They had to have a benchmark exchange rate of everything that people could trade off of and write contracts for on a daily basis. And that's where LIBOR comes from, the London Interbank Offered Rate. And that becomes the kind of de facto standard of the dollar markets and the price of dollars around the world in 1984. We get the Plaza Accord in 1985, where they start rigging currency rates and devaluing the dollar. And then we have what we're on, basically the LIBOR standard. And the LIBOR standard allows London and the offshore dollar markets to price dollars. And the Federal Reserve is now effectively a price taker on its own currency. Okay, it's not the price maker. And that's a lie, by the way. It's just a flat out freaking lie to say that from 1984 to 2022, that the Federal Reserve was the price maker in dollars. They weren't. The offshore dollar markets were. And so eventually, post 2008 and into Trump's first term, what's the first thing that happens when Jerome Powell is ensconced at the Fed? He and John Williams, the head of the New York Fed, start implementing SOFR, the Secured Overnight Financing Rate. Now, LIBOR is an unsecured rate, right? It's just 18 London bankers call each other up, circle jerk each other at the beginning, at the end of each day, set them rate for the next morning, and lo and behold, that's the price for dollars. They call each other up and they say, well, I was trading dollars for 5.145%. I was 5.189 and blah, 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 blah. And they come up with a rate, shave a couple of basis points for themselves, or a tenth of a basis point for themselves. And that's that. During the 2008 financial crisis, actually, at the Federal Reserve, SOFR was born as a white paper. And it, all through the Obama administration, the 10 Downing Street candidate, not Manchurian candidate, but 10 Downing Street candidate, Obama administration, administered by Timothy Geithner, clearly a City of London guy. We're at the zero bound. Those guys keep that suppressed. It never comes through. We get Dodd-Frank, all the terrible things, Sarbanes-Oxley, and all that stuff. And then we come into 2017 when Trump wins, and Powell and John Williams start the rollout of SOFR. SOFR is the Secured Overnight Financing Rate, which is a rate based on the market transactions for dollars in the U.S., not global, U.S. Treasury T-bill market. The repo market for T-bills, 3-month T-bills, as set in the United States between American banks. So we went from London setting the price for dollars to the United States setting the price for dollars. There's more to talk about there. I've talked about it 1,000 times. You can go find any myriad of 150 podcasts where I talk about more of that stuff. But that's the basis. That was the foundation for where we are today. Because without the United States getting control of the value and the cost of its own currency, how can you then build any kind of financial, military, or fiscal, or political independence from the old monetary system of Europe, which
why I thought this
through
was
the City of London. Okay.
Why I thought this was such an important data point to start with,
Mm-hmm.
for everyone to kind of get a reduced concept of what Tom's been laying out here is when you hear things like the American Empire, the global American Empire, right? And that sounds all very, very convincing that there's this global American empire that came into prominence between the two world wars, right? Like after World War II, especially, America's the preeminent world power along with the Soviet Union. That sounds very convincing, and lots of things confirm that. Here's the problem. There has been no empire on the face of the earth ever who has given complete and total control over its currency to a third party, even one who's friendly or not, but especially not one that it won its independence from a few hundred years before that. That's crazy. That's what we would say for the J lovers in the crowd. Meshuggah. It's Meshuggah, right? There is no when I got this information downloaded in my brain, I was like, well, hang on a second. If that's true, then this whole artifice of the great American global empire is also not true, because it doesn't. Those two things don't go together. And now, yeah, sorry, good.
And the follow on from that then is that we're not living through the downfall of the American empire. We're living through the birth of the American empire.
Bingo.
The American empire is actually in its adolescent stage right now. And this is a thought I wanted to bounce off of you, Tom, that you have the emerging market, the concept of an emerging market, and characteristics of an emerging market, the types of debt that are available to it, the rates relative to others. What if America was actually an emerging market?
Yeah.
And it's relative to what its actual upward ceiling is. And if you began looking at the way that America is behaving and comparing that to an emerging market, an order of magnitude above the previous ones, how does that follow out economically?
We win, and we win big, and it's awesome, and it's good, and it's great for humanity. Okay. And the reason is, I mean, but by the way, Matt, phenomenal, let's just bon mot. What if, or question, what if the America is an emerging market? What he means by emerging market is that it's a market that's has the potential to, go from a, in finance terms, a frontier, emerging, developed market. And to go from an emerging market to a developed market usually, or entails economic development on an order of magnitude scale, one or two order of magnitudes. From a $400 billion economy to a $4 trillion economy. That would be going from, an emerging market to a developed market, even though we have plenty of $4 trillion economies in Europe right now that I wouldn't consider anything other than emerging markets, because, and they're structured and their productive capacity and everything else, because they're actually just third world countries at this point. I'm talking specifically about places like the UK, Germany, France, and the rest of them. These are not rich countries anymore. They have squandered their wealth. But yes, no, you're absolutely right. And the reason that the U.S. has that kind of potential here, and the reason for that is because we've never really had control over our monetary, fiscal, and foreign policies. Or at least we haven't for the last 100 years. And before we hit record tonight, I told you guys that the last couple of days I've been I did a quick, study on Ulysses S. Grant, right? Next to Patton, the greatest general in the history of the United States, and only because I think Patton was cool. But the more I think about Grant, the more I think Washington and Patton are the three greatest generals in American history. Because Washington won the independence, the beginning of the independence. Grant won us our I wouldn't even call it our adolescence. It's almost like we learned how to walk under Grant and Lincoln. And then Patton is what should have been able to secure our emergence as a real power in World War II. And the British then went ahead and killed Roosevelt and gave us that hasty Truman, and then the atom bomb, and then the Eurodollars, and everything I talked about at the opening of the show. Like, that's what they did. And, Patton at the end understood that we were doing this wrong, that we were sent into Eastern Europe to liberate. We were sent into Europe to liberate Eastern Europe from the forces of authoritarianism, fascism. We didn't. We surrendered Prague and Berlin and Vienna and Budapest and Sofia and all of it. And we should have, and as he says famously at the end of the movie, version of him. He says, we should pick up we should get the Germans to help us fight the damn Bolsheviks and kick them out of Eastern Europe, because that was the job that we were sent over there to do. And we didn't, and we weren't allowed to do it because, well, the British were already in control of the outcome of the war, and they had already set the stage for themselves to extend their empire yet another cycle of history. And that's where we are today. So no, Matt, you're absolutely correct. We have the opportunity here with everything that we have because of our rule of law, because of the We the People Constitution, right? Where we the people are sovereign over our government as opposed to everywhere else on the fucking planet. Oh, sorry, dude. Freaking planet. Jason asked me not to swear much tonight. I will do my best. The freaking planet to where the government is sovereign over the people. Even and I've argued this point about the British Constitution with Alexander Mercurius and other people, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't see a set in stone document that says we the people blah. What I see is this melange of a document that you guys futz with whenever it's convenient, and then you just destroyed your own. You just destroyed your own constitution like 3 weeks ago when you got rid of the steering group or the steerage group within the peerage group within the House of Lords, who were the keepers of the Constitution. Like, they're gone. Doesn't exist anymore. So sorry, you just overthrew the Magna Carta. Like, ours is still here. And so this is very important, like, to think about it from that perspective. But go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
Let's get to the next data point, which is City of London. Sure. And I think this from City of London we can start talking about the Trump plan, right? What plan we can start to troost in, which is just based on data. But before we do, ladies and gentlemen, I see some of you have been sending in some super chats. Let me just read some out. Thank you for the gifted memberships, 20 gifted memberships from Colomark. Appreciate you, my friend. And enjoy the memberships. If you when it comes up to renewal, please hit renewal. It's a cheap one. I think it's only $2 per month. So it does keep the lights on here at Shea Mironchuck. Mongo says, Tom has provided me with so much insight over time. My only wish now is that he'd grown from Star Wars morality to Orthodox Christianity. Come and see. Well,
fair enough, dude.
There's always time. There's always time.
There's always time. Yeah, I know. Yeah. My partner is Greek after all. Go ahead.
See, there you go. You're already halfway there. Just
Already
rub a bit more olive oil on you, Tom, and you fit right in.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Just let me do the grift and shill there, Erickson. Yep. Calm down, okay? If you have any comments or questions, please send them as super chats. You can send them even as low as $2. It's just easier for me to keep an eye on them. We will read them out at different parts of the show, especially near the end. So I appreciate each and every one of you for helping me pay the bills. And we will again send them over on super chats, and I will read them out as we can. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is sort of a couple other major like light bulb moments for me to start onboarding onto this new way of seeing the world, and I think it segues well into the City of London. It was a couple of specific things that I learned, not learned, or one of them I learned, and one of them I sort of looked at it in a new light. The first one is that Russia intervened in the Civil War, or the whatever you want to call it, the war of northern aggression, war between the states, whatever. Russia intervened on behalf of the North.
Yes.
And just that single sentence alone, I heard that somewhere. I don't remember where it was. And I was like, hold on a second.
Right.
Wait. And I'd always had this vision of the Civil War being this thing that was just this hermetically sealed environment where we have our continent and we had a little fight over, people fight over what the fight was over, but it was just Americans fighting against Americans. Never in my life had I even paused to consider that there would have been foreign interests that would have had interests in the outcome of that war. And so then that led me to thinking, well, okay, so if Russia is intervening on behalf of the North, they had some reason why they wanted the North to win versus the South. What would that be? Who are they trying to counter? So that led me down a whole rabbit hole of the history between the UK and Russia specifically. Centuries of conflict between those peoples. The other thing was that we've had this revival of the Monroe Doctrine, the Donroe Doctrine. And people just sort of take this as like, oh yeah, America like asserting hemispheric supremacy, something along those lines. But the Monroe Doctrine was written specifically against European powers.
Yes.
It was specifically targeted at Europeans. And so there's been once that clicked for me, and then I started going through. Okay, then you have Teddy Roosevelt, who does the reassertion of the Monroe Doctrine, and you have Russia intervening on behalf of the Union in the interregnum there, and then you have McKinley, and I started tracing these things together, and I was like, hold on a second, American system of political economy viewed in this light is like the story of the emergence of a uniquely American system of government in the one place in the world geographically where it could be conducted, and all of the last 300 years has been a story of European imperial powers interfering in Western Hemisphere events. This is just a continuation of that. We didn't reach the end of history where all of that just disappeared, and we're now in this like universalist, like everyone is all equal. This is not a thing. It's been American history has been a story of Americans constantly kicking Europeans out of America. Stop fucking around in here. Focus. We're going to focus on our own people. So those things tied together, I was like, this whole post-war order has been a continuation of the British Empire, but it's a husk of it's a zombie British Empire, and when you
one might call it a shadow empire.
Indeed, they might, and it's British in name. It's obviously there's a lot of British influences in there, but the nature of the British Empire is as it got so extended out, there's lots of non-British people who hold positions of power. There's Americans, there's Jews, there's Italians, there's Swiss, there's Swedes, there's all the different types of all
Chinese
in there. Chinese, yes, Indians, Pakistani, Iranian.
Saudi.
So London, or City of London in this sense, then, is I realize as Tom has tried to explain what he means when he says this, it is a metonym, sort of like you might refer to the American government as DC. When you say DC, you're not saying the black lady who takes the bus in DC on the streets. You're not referring to her. Right. You're using the name DC to refer to the phenomenon of the federal government. In the same way, London or City of London or the British Empire are the inhabitants of this husk of the British Empire. So then this leads to the City of London.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Yes, I've been trying to say recently, I was like, look, guys, City of London is a metaphor. I actually tried to early on, I used the term Davos, thinking that there was a different term because I looked at Brexit happening. Remember, my evolution here is like everybody else's. I didn't, in 2016, when Brexit was happening, I was just like, cool, get rid of get out from underneath the Fourth Reich, right? Get out from underneath the EU SSR. Right, that's the right thing for the Brits to do, and I understood how desperate the EU were to keep them in. But that's I'm historically illiterate at that point, and Dexter White reminds me of my historical illiteracy on a 9 daily basis, and that's a good thing. I might add, because that guy's a badass, and. We've had this running conversation between the two of us, but it was like Davos meant that it was the World Economic Forum. It was that your old European banking powers. It was the institutions of the post-World War II economic order, the IMF, the World Bank, the UN, all the BIS, all of that as the architecture for this plan that's coming out of Davos every February. And Brexit and Trump both threw a wrench in the works and also advanced some ideas because, of course, their reaction as a kind of immune system reaction, they had to deal with and expel the demon Trump. They had to deal with Brexit. They had to undermine Brexit and all of it. And just watching them go through this process of outing themselves as the real masters of the world, the real power behind the shadow empire, behind the headlines, you realize, oh yeah, there's that. And again, this goes back to, and the little things about the Brits has sat in the back of my head for a long, long time. Many a conversation I've had with people over the years, Dexter White being one of them. And I remember him bitching and moaning about American journalism died the day that, the whore of Babylon, Tina Brown, took over the Atlantic. Or the New Yorker, sorry, and over the New Yorker. I'm like, that was the moment he was like, no, our whole media just started to collapse at that moment in time because the New Yorker was a high point, right, of American writing, journalism, everything, and then the Brits came in and destroyed it. over time. And it did it on purpose. They've taken over. They always had control over our media. They always had a control over our media because they've always had control over our intelligence services, which are all based on MI6 in the first place. The OSS was right. So CIA. So MI6 helps. We pattern the OSS on MI6. That turns into the CIA. There's tons of documentation out there that CIA was actually running all three of the major television networks when they were being created. This always been this kind of fake free market and media. We've never really had one. That's all down the line from where I think Jason wants to take this. But this is take all these little bits and pieces, folks, and you'll start to see how the matrix of information has obscured the data. To go back to Jason's point originally about the difference between information and data. So,
and to tie it back to what you were saying, Tom, if you think of these things as categories, right? So, like, let's say, what is the City of London? Because the City of London, right, used to be in Venice, and then it was in Holland for a bit, and it's moved around. I think it was trying to move to Dubai, right? Yes. That was the next thing. They're going to move to Dubai, which had already been setting up Dubai as a next thing. The Greater Israel Project was really not even for Israel. Because here's a news flash for people. Israel doesn't have to have Jews to exist. Israel doesn't need to have Bibi to exist. Israel doesn't need Likud to exist. Nope. Israel is just wherever the heck they say it is, right? It's just a place on a map that they do business in. And today it's the Jews or the Zionists who are running things. Tomorrow it could be the Christians or who knows who, right? They don't care. Right. It's leverage. If you think of these categories as a concentration of leverage, both political, financial, and et cetera, right? Banking, like that's why we say these are banking elites. There's a connection, and this is why I think you've seen Pope Leo show up in the news quite a bit. There's a direct connection between the City of London and the Vatican Bank. Right? Those two entities are joined at the hip. Right. So, and this goes back to the Napoleonic Wars or even before that. So when you start to see that these things can move around and that these are special little interest places, the next question is, where is it moving to and who's going to be in control of it? Because again, it doesn't, the guys at the top of the heap aren't motivated by money because they have all the money. They're not motivated even by power. Well, they have all the power. What they're motivated by is being able to leverage their power at any given time to get what they want done instantaneously. Demonstrations of power that is beyond us. So that's where we're downstream of, and we're in the peanut gallery watching and trying to make the best informed analysis, if we want to call it that, of the situation. Why? Well, because it's fun. Two, because like occasionally, and this is why I say I produce weather reports. What you do with that is up to you. I don't know where the hurricane's going to hit, but I know I know there's a hurricane, and you might as well know about it. And maybe that'll make you a little less panic when something happens, panicans, because for me, the more I know, if I go back to the idea that if in 2019, if I knew exactly what was going to happen in 2020, couldn't change anything, but I knew exactly what was going to happen and how it was going to play out, it would have saved me a lot of time, because I spent about 6 months with my hair on fire, right? Embarrassingly so. So now it's like, if we can get a little bit ahead of that and give you a little bit of a forecast of next week, if not next month, if not next year, then maybe you're in a better place and you can calm down and touch grass and,
well, what's important about that is not
get a wife, do more interesting things with your life than screeching at the screen, like.
Well, agreed, but what's also important about that is that when you arm people with data and real information, and I think there's mis and disinformation that seeds into the space at every turn, it allows you to make better decisions with your life. It allows you to make, better decisions with your capital. Of course, better decisions with your capital means time, and it also makes you make better decisions and you have actual political power. What they do all day long is demoralize you. What you have to realize is that it's all about, well, are they going to get you to give up? Are they going to get you depressed? Are they going to get you to have ennui? Are they going to get you to, I hate using a French term, but it's the best term for it. Sometimes the French actually come up with a halfway decent fucking word. You have to realize that that's all part of demoralization, because once you're demoralized, you're easily maneuvered into positions that are against your best interest, or you just check out and you have apathy and da, 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 da. What they really doing, and that's been the state of affairs for a very long time. But what's they're actually done now with this version of reality that we're dealing with today, having ramped up the anxiety, ramped up the apathy, ramped up the depression, ramped up the ennui, is to turn everybody schizophrenic. You have people who can now not perceive reality, and they're able to believe with wholehearted, like their whole heart and being, that Iran has won the war, when that is clearly delusional. And I do not mean that in any snarky way imaginable. I mean that in the textbook Oxford English Dictionary definition of the word delusional. You are delusional. You have become schizophrenic. You have lost all mooring with reality. Either you're a hebephrenic or a paranoid or an obcom or this. I mean, and this gets back to, and I learned all this shit back in the when I was in my teenage years. I was reading Philip K. Dick, and I was reading, and he wrote a book on every one of the different schizophrenias and the versions of it. And then watching the average normal middle-class dude in some version of the British post-war dystopia, British-induced Cold War, post-war dystopia, go through ennui or depression or apathy or disconnection or whatever. I can go through I was doing it this morning for my market report. I was going through like each of the books. I'm like, oh my God, we're all either Rick Deckard or Joe Chip or Barney Mayerson, or we're narcissists, or we're this, and all of it. And I'm like, it's because of schizophrenia. It's not panic. It's not any of this stuff. It's literal mental illness at this point. And
I call them the merchants of despair, because that's what that's their number one export. If you look into like the areas like City of London, this is what the Epstein files kind of started to expose a bit. Is that you think about this, right? The highest concentration of wealth, power, and influence the world has ever seen is in with these groups right now. And what do they do with it? Human trafficking, drug running, guns,
alcohol,
screwing people's heads, like
eating babies.
Is that it? Like you could literally be making Tower of Babel. Like I'm not saying make the Tower of Babel, but that would be an improvement over some of these other activities.
I'm going to bring that in here in just a second, but just to say, when you have people who don't recognize any restraints on their behavior, when they see themselves as gods, there is no behavior that is beyond the pale, one. And two, they're dopamine addicts just like the rest of us. And so, yeah, I got to get my dopamine fix. When you're completely evil, you eat the face off of 4-month-old. Like, are you kidding? I mean, that's where they are. So, that's what you're up against.
When you can buy anything, when you have access to anything, then I mean, it's not even, you don't even have to demonstrate it. Like, you can demonstrate it, but it's intuitive that people's interests are going to get really, really weird the more things they have at their disposal. So if you have everything at your disposal, your interests are going to be complete. You're hardly even human anymore. You're so different from everyone else, and that's part of this. Like if you're thinking historically here in terms of like centuries long cycles, I try to imagine myself as like a historian 300, 500 years in the future, telling the story of this period of time. Right. Because we'll look back and we'll talk about someone in the 1000 BC and someone in 200 BC, and we're kind of like, oh yeah, they're basically the same, but there's 800 years difference there. These aren't just like the people that lived back then. There was real things that were happening in between, and a person at that time would be looking at a super, super high resolution picture of it. But sometimes it's useful in a historical perspective to zoom out and look at more of a low resolution and kind of look for the big overarching patterns. And so if you're thinking about the British Empire as being, it's like the global meta for several centuries, it developed a methodology, and it becomes the way that it functioned. You're talking about, It emerges from an island nation that is sort of inheriting a mantle from an empire that collapsed because it overextended itself across land. So they build around their navy. They form this mercantile empire that covers the globe. So it's very maritime focused,
Yes.
which then means, what are they going to specialize in? They don't have a ton of resources domestically, so they're going to have strong trade barriers protecting their domestic economy, their domestic producers. They're going to use all of their satellites to pull in the resources they don't have domestically, and then they're going to export intelligence gathering. Like, you've got ships that are coming and going constantly, so you're going to start trading in intelligence. You're going to start trading in currencies. You're going to start trading in arbitrages. So this was the character of the empire as it formed itself. Then it expands out to all these satellites, and then within those satellites, it pulls up the local people, skims off the top, and incorporates them into that methodology. So they're almost forming like a multiracial ethnicity. It's like a particular class that lives a particular way, adopts a particular methodology, makes decisions in a particular way, and they have their it's like written on their DNA, the Gantt chart that they need to go through. When this happens, we do this. When this happens, we do this. When this happens, we do this. You iterate through that across enough places over multiple centuries, and it doesn't even need a conductor anymore. It runs itself. It follows its own natural incentives until it runs into something that capitalizes on its weaknesses.
Yes. And when you have a maritime empire like that, of course, that's why you immediately look at the geographic choke points around the world and then want to make sure that you control those.
Yes.
So Mackinder, my good friend and I, and my good friend and I, Alex Craner, have been talking about Mackinder-esque politics and all the geopolitical pivot of history paper that he wrote in 1906. And you understand that that's part of the British Empire, the system that is the British Empire. And that's another thing to say. City of London is not even a name for something. It's a name for a system. And that system is the virtualization of collateral and the trading on the arbitrage of the geographic and time arbitrage of the leverage of that collateral. That's what it is. And in the world that we live in today, the world of the 19th century, that collateral was silver, right? Today, that collateral is oil. Okay, and it's just that simple. So, because back then, before oil became the thing that it is today, we didn't have a geographically constrained source of energy to turn raw energy into productive torque and work in a physics sense, force through a distance. Work equals force through distance, right? We had wood, we had coal, we had everything else. And yeah, there was a little bit of geography there, but not a lot. There's a lot of coal all over the freaking world, right? And there's trees freaking everywhere. And so, at the end of the day, once you start doing the oil thing, and then you can virtualize the collateral and financialize the collateral that way, that's when they didn't need to have physical colonies anywhere. And the British Empire, in effect, gave itself up because they had already perfected the virtualization, the financialization process of virtualization of the collateral and taking a vig off of every friggin' transaction in the world. Now all you got to do is virtualize the oil markets, and you do that by making sure that you control the sources of oil. So, in places where there's a lot of oil that you don't control, you suppress its production. Russia, the United States, where you have control over them, Iran, the Middle East, right? You take control of it. You send T.E. Lawrence in during World War II to unite the Arab tribes. You make a deal with the king of Persia to create, the Iranian Anglo-Iranian oil company, whatever the hell that becomes NIOC and then eventually becomes British Petroleum, right? Like when you start looking at it that way, that's when you realize that that's what they're protecting, and that's what Donald Trump is now, absolutely attacking at the fundamental level. Because go back to what we talked about originally when Jason made me go through the history of LIBOR versus SOFR. SOFR is now the mechanism by which you price dollars. Dollars are how you price oil. Oil is how you liquefy the financial system. If we control the price of dollars, we control the price of oil. If we can get physical, if we can break open their chokehold over the price, over the production and the distribution of oil. Now, there's another layer to this that I've missed. You have first you get the control of the currency, then you got to get control of the reserves, which is the savings. And that's the gold and silver pricing. Bitcoin pricing, because that's all your M0, folks. Right? Oil is what you build M1, M2, M3, the other 5 layers of Extra's pyramid off of. But you have to have control of the pricing of the collateral, because you're going to issue debt to expand productive capacity. And there's only 2 ways to expand productive capacity: spend savings, i.e. sell equity, or buy debt. That's it. You have 2 ways to finance your company, right? Sell equity, buy debt. That's it. That's what it comes down to, right? Unless you've got savings, but then you're putting your equity, you're putting your savings into the equity of the company, and then selling the equity from yourself to the company, and then the company spends the equity, right? So it's sell equity, buy debt. But so we have a monetary system, and like rightly should, where we should have the interplay between equity and debt, flowing back and forth across both sides of the quantity theory of money, the supply for money and the demand for money, going back and forth, and whoever has control over the price of the debt and the price of the currency that we measure the debt in, then we have to have control of all 3 of those things. And the Eurodollar system had control over the price of the dollar. London still had control over the pricing of gold and silver, and the Brent crude contract was the financialization product to create the leverage ratio for the flow control system of the current world. The flow of money around the world is a derivative of how oil flows around the world, because without oil, there is no economic activity. Without any economic activity, there's no trade, there's no dollar flow. So that's the 3 layers you have to think about. And since Donald Trump came to power, he has gone after all 3 of those things. But the guys who brought him into power in his first term, maybe they didn't need him in the second term. Maybe they needed him to be off the scene for 4 years while Powell finished the process of putting SOFR on the board. I'm conjecturing here at this point. I am not saying that that's what happened. That's what happened. I think they rolled with it. They rolled with the outcome. But SOFR was a 5-year pilot project, right? It didn't become fully online until 2022. So all of 2021, if you go back through that history, which is when I came up with this, when I saw this happening, and then of course that's when I know I didn't meet Jason until I think like 2023 or something like that. But I started doing, that's when I started coming up with this stuff. I started watching how they're going to stop Powell and the Fed from getting control over the monetary system, looking ahead to the final rollout of SOFR on January 1, 2022, when all debt in the United States has to be indexed to SOFR, not LIBOR. Right? And I said, the minute that goes live and Powell gets reconfirmed at the Fed, because they fought him tooth and claw, Powell's going to raise interest rates. And he's going to raise interest rates to 6%. Well, he got the 5.5%. Because it's the only thing that made any sense, because you had to wring out all the inflation from COVID, you had to do all this other stuff, and you had to cut the leverage of the Eurodollar system by an order of magnitude and make Europe now our biggest market for U.S. Treasuries to defend their currencies and defend their banking system, which was completely and utterly dysfunctional after 15 years of negative interest rates, or 10 years of negative interest rates and 5 years of zero bound interest rates before that. And their banking system and their pension systems are screwed. And so Powell raising interest rates crushed everybody, and we've been in a hard dollar market for a long, long time, except for the United States. Powell bet that the United States could handle 5.5% interest rates better than the rest of the world. Bing! And we were right.
And the great thing, like there's a deep irony in the fact that they They built out their empire by using American productive by borrowing, skimming off the top of American productive capacity, and chained themselves to the dollar in doing so.
Yes.
And so then if it doesn't, someone doesn't even have to be like super based and red pilled. They just have to be an American person who has things in America that they value and they want to maintain the value of American assets. Like that's your baseline level for a patriot. Like that's someone like Scott Bessent. Like these are Americans who want to keep America because it's where they keep all their stuff. And so now the whole offshore dollar market chained itself to the dollar. Well, what happens when someone takes control of the dollar? Now the rest of you are all being held by the short and curlies.
And what's really interesting is notice what they tried to do during the Biden junta. They tried to spend this into oblivion. And they were barred from doing so because certain senators, squishy senators on the margin, stood up and said no. And I made that call as well. I said, if I'm right about all of this, when we get into the SAVE Act, or the Build Back Better negotiations, I said, watch Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, because they're the squishies on the Democratic side. They're going to block this. And they're going to block it because someone was standing on their shoulder saying, you're going to block this. That's real power. That's real power. And that was probably Jamie Dimon.
Well, and what got my attention about it too, it probably is Jamie Dimon, and also probably who also has, if we want to say, there's these. The problem with a lot of these things, if you zoom out far enough, that everyone gets connected and everyone's dirty to a certain degree. Bessent's dirty, all that stuff. But it's like, yeah, but who they might be dirty, but they also might be doing things that are favoring at least the Americans. So that's a data point.
They may have been bad. They may have been bad men in the past and decided now the game board has shifted far enough. Their incentive structure shifted far enough that now they can tack with the wind because they're not having to tack against it anymore. Remember, like the New York banks were still subordinate to the London banks. So what was Morgan going to do? Like as a CEO of JP Morgan, just to stop for a second and think about it. You're the CEO of JP Morgan, as powerful as all of us rubes think JP Morgan is. They're not more powerful than all the other banks combined. Therefore, if the political structure and the military structure and and everything else is all going London/Davos's way, got news for you, dude. They've got to go along to get along. But when the opportunity comes that they can fuck the old system, they took it. They backed Trump, put him in power, gave him Jerome Powell. Powell did his part of it, and the rest is history. And then all they've done is like dealt with it behind the scenes. And yeah, does Morgan have and the data point for me, which sealed all of this, was that when I thought about it, when I went back, it was JP Morgan refusing to repo Euro bonds in 2019 at par. They were like, no, we'll repo them at a 30% haircut. And that created the SOFR crisis of September 2019, which then led us to COVID. They had to pop COVID 5 years early, folks, because the Americans were getting ready to roll out SOFR and screw the European banks. They had to force the Fed back to the zero bound. And so they popped COVID on. I'm firmly convinced that COVID was not just a depopulation thing. They were going for the whole Megillah, but they weren't ready for it because we weren't ready. We weren't demoralized enough. That's how I read it back then. So, I mean, I may be wrong, but that's the way I read it.
Well, no, I mean, the lockdowns, right? The only way to make sense of the lockdowns and how they were conducted across the world, the way they were done was because they were preventing the market from getting cooked, from overheating the market while they transferred trillions and trillions of dollars offshore to other banks to uphold the bond market and amongst other things, right? To keep that derivatives market from getting called, because that's the elephant on toothpicks. There's the invisible Vic, right?
Right.
But so we've laid the tracks. LIBOR, SOFR, City of London. You started talking about the overall financial plan by American elites. A few other names to throw in there. It's the Carlyle Group, Texas Oil, right? When you start seeing those entities and how things have been moving in their general direction, right? A Great Golden Dome, that's Carlyle. Hey, you know what? Everyone's crying that America doesn't have enough missiles to fight this, to drop on Iran. You know what? Carlyle's probably like, hey, yeah, you're right. Hey, by the way, we're the missile guys. That's what we do. We build missiles.
And where did Jerome Powell cut his teeth at private equity?
Carlyle Group, right?
Oops.
So lots of little interesting things. Now Carlyle is getting into the retirement fund game because Trump signed an order that allows private equity to start investing in retirement funds. Sounds like that was BlackRock's game for a long time. BlackRock, Vanguard, all these other little groups.
And BlackRock,
but now Carlyle.
And BlackRock's been taken down a peg. Larry Fink is on our side now, not working for Davos anymore. I made that call back in late 2020 or 2021, late 2021. I was at a conference down, it was a small investor conference down in Miami, and I was sitting there, cigar in hand, whiskey, not coffee, whiskey in hand, sitting out there, second story of the Hyatt Regency in downtown Miami, half a dozen high net worth investors in front of me, guys I barely know, and I'm like, guys, how about BlackRock? Like, it's a $40 billion company in terms of shareholder equity. At the time, it's like 80 billion now. At the time, it was like $40 billion. I just did a simple balance sheet analysis of the company. I'm like, dude, they're a mid cap. I'm like, okay, guys, I'm Jamie Dimon. You're John Solomon from Goldman. You're David, whatever his fucking name is, from Morgan Stanley. You're the Wells guy. You're this guy. BOFA and Citigroup aren't part of this conversation because they're both in Citigroup and they work for the bad guys. What say we go after this Fink guy? He's getting a little uppity, don't you think? That's a nice book of business he's got going on there. I want half because I'm JP Morgan. You guys split up the other 50%. We're good. I literally did that. And I'm in a room. This is $50 million sitting in front of me, at least, maybe 100. And they're all like, I'm some middle class schmuck from North Florida. I don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. And I go, and they're like, holy shit, you're right. I'm like, you watch. Maximum 4 years. BlackRock's going to work for these guys.
And when Fink introduced
they're
Trump,
going to take it from him. What's that?
When Fink gave his introduction before Trump's speech at, I believe it was at Davos
Mm-hmm.
a few months ago, he
Mhm.
he gave that entire speech on his knees.
Mhm.
He was
Dude,
chastened.
I haven't seen better blowjobs on Pornhub. I mean, making like a circus seal, for Christ's sake. Like, it was impressive. So
There was
Sure,
Go ahead.
just briefly, because what we're really seeing is we're not a response to Trump, the man, right? They've already made their intentions clear about him. It's the power behind Trump. So if they're responding this way now, then we're saying, okay, well, the power behind Trump is shifted. Who's that power group? Who's powerful enough to square off with the City of London, Vatican Bank, all these elite families, the Rothschilds, of this, the that, the entire country of Israel, and everyone else, right? Who's got the cojones to stand up them and not blink? Well, there's got to be some groups, right? Wall Street, Carlyle Group. We can make a list of names.
And now let's add in the other two legs of the situation, which is who's the factory for the world? The Chinese.
Yep.
Who's the bread basket? Who's the commodity bread basket of the world that's going to feed and house and clothe and energize the build out of Asia out of the 19th century? Russia. Who hates London? Who hates Europe? All three of them. This is not hard. Russia and China don't have to be our friends, but for the short period of time that's necessary, they can stay out of the way and let us do our thing. And there's nobody else on the planet that can act. So they made a mistake, guys. They thought they were going to decamp to Beijing. Beijing put Xi in charge and put Hu Jintao in prison. So then they tried to decamp to the UAE. Gulf states. They control the entire Persian Gulf. They control the west side of the Persian Gulf because of Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, UAE. They control the east side with the IRGC. And now that all the things that have happened over the last 48 hours, very clear that the IRGC is calling the shots in Iran because the civilian government's under house arrest because, right? They've always been working for London. When you stop to think about it, what were they trying to do? What was their plan after they lost control of Beijing? Wasn't hard. Let Iran get a nuclear weapon, 5,000 or 10,000 ballistic missiles. They take North Korea and plop it down over every major geographic choke point in the world for maritime trade other than the Panama Canal. And they were given they gave the Panama Canal to China.
Let's get to trade routes, because I think this is the critical part. So let's get to the actual plan, right? As we can play it out. And gentlemen, I'll have you go back and forth on this, because I think you've done both done excellent work. So
yes,
here's the data, right? The data point is this: Trump has now expressed interest and is now essentially recontrolling the Panama Canal. He's looking at Greenland, that's Northern Passage, and parts of Canada, because that would also be the Northern Passage. He's basically taking express interest or moving on the Strait of Hormuz. He just made a peace agreement or a military agreement, let's say, with Indonesia, a long-term one that takes over Indonesia's trade route, which people may be sleeping on, but that's a massive one.
The Straits of Malacca are far more important than the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah, made also another similar agreement with Morocco. Basically cutting off because the British had sold their interest of Gibraltar over to the Spanish. So now the Spanish are control part of that territory, but now the Americans and Moroccans are controlling the other part of it, right? So systematically, what we keep seeing, and maybe if I'm missing any, let me know, but systematically what we're seeing is Trump is going after trade routes, naval trade routes, which used to be the ownership, the bread and butter, the whole kit and caboodle of the British Empire. Past, present, or future,
and is making a play for their shipping insurance.
Right. We won't even get the Lloyd's of London yet.
We haven't got the Lloyd's of London, but yes, no, absolutely. And then there's this little thing called Argentina and the Maldives and the Falkland Islands, which is also important for going around. The Cape Horn. So there's a lot going on here. Yes. So
there's a setup.
I talked a lot. Matt, you go ahead.
No, there's a setup. I have to go TT, but I'll let you boys.
The man won't wear shorts, but he says TT.
I'm trying out this new swearing thing, man. I have to get inventive. Ladies and gentlemen, keep sending those super chats in. Provo, $5. Great group and conversation. Thank you so much. We have a Slowboard Whiteboard. He's been freeloading. Thanks for the gifted from membership for 21 months. Sorry. And I'm doing this fast because I really got to go TT. And $10 from TK. Christ is king. Love you, Ortho Bros, but it's looking like the best local church school is Catholic, so I have to do what I have to do. Well, there's always time, brother. You come over when you are ready, when God makes it available to you. I'll be right back, gentlemen. The floor.
The other point I was going to make is there's South Africa. That is another important. It's not like a primary trade route, but it's like a secondary. And the Trump administration has been pretty openly hostile to the South African government.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So remember when he brought the president in and he played the video and he was like, "Look at all the crosses. They're all dead."
I know.
Yeah. Struggle sessioned him.
Yeah, struggles. It absolutely was a struggle session. You're looking ahead to South Africa and Cape Horn. It may not be as important. Here's the thing, which is that what Trump is clearly saying is that I want to open up Equatorial Africa. I want to regain, I want to regain sanity, or for sanity to regain itself in South Africa. And let's open up that continent as well. One of the things that people have to realize, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, is like Iran is only important geographically as long as Europe is the center of the financial world. The minute you move the globe and you rotate the globe somewhere else, anywhere else, you look at the Pacific Ocean, you look at the Western Hemisphere, you look at the Arctic. If we were allowed to, we'd look at the Antarctic, but we're not allowed because that's where the aliens are. I kid. I can't help myself. Gillian Anderson, she's still kind of hot, to be honest with you. Making an X-Files reference. So when you do that, you realize that Iran is not important. When you realize that Russia can develop east to help, bring Asia out of the Dark Ages and to support China, and you can develop the east the eastern front of Russia with Japan. Once, of course, Japan finally decides to sign an end to World War II, right? And we can develop the Bering Strait, and we can develop the Pacific Ocean, and everything. We don't have to be beholden to these old geographic choke points around, the area that was the birth of civilization, or at least the modern civilization, right? At least in this 12,000 year cycle. So now the
Gotta run
question is
across.
6,000 year, 12,000 year cycle, however you want to put it, depending on what your proclivities are. And I don't really, that's not germane. What is germane though is that Trump is clearly looking at the Western Hemisphere as the center of the world now. And, the Gulf of America is the Gulf of America, and it's not the Gulf of Mexico. Sorry. And that's just the way it's going to be. And when you do that, you realize that Iran's not all that important anymore. And, God's forbid everybody figures that out. Right. Like once you reframe your thinking completely, all of a sudden, a lot of ideas that we take as given, a lot of problems that we take as given, are parts of the chessboard or whatever you want to call it as given. You realize that they're just that all reduces to a pawn on the board and not the game itself. And the game now is something completely different. I hate to use chess as a metaphor. I think it's a terrible metaphor for geopolitics, but just to as a jumping off point for the conversation. So, you know what I mean?
I think there's one point that's well, and let me say with regards to Iran, I think there's a few things that Trump has said, especially in his recent appearance on CNBC. There's a couple things that he said that kind of by implication, you can recognize that managing the Iran question now was not on the to-do list. Like managing the Iran question was on the to-do list, but doing it right now was not necessarily. Because he talked about how he called up Scott Bessent. He did it in his Trump way, but he said he called up Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick, and he was like, hey, I know you've got all these amazing economic numbers, but we're going to have to mess it up. And he said that he expected the stock market to go way lower than it has, and he expected oil prices to be way higher. Now, this could just be Trump doing his thing. He just says things, and But I think there's also if you had described the sequence of events as they've happened so far, nobody would expect that the United States would have such minimal casualties, or that the markets would be as relatively unfazed as they have been. So it stands to reason to me that he did expect it to happen more. But I think this goes back to Joaquin Flores uses this. He's been talking about this lately, and I think it's a really useful way to think about it. That Trump is not a king. He's not an emperor. Like we make the memes and all of that. He's sort of an archetype of that in his personality, the way he comports himself. But functionally, his role is as he's a CEO. He's a CEO and a chief negotiator. That means that he has a board that he has to answer to. And he's constrained in the things he can and can't do, given those constraints. Now, the fact that those constraints are there doesn't like everyone wants to interpret these things in like a static, permanent fashion. But the fact that those constraints are there doesn't mean like there's a constant power struggle. There's a constant power play that's happening here. Sometimes he needs to allow something to happen because the shareholders, the board members who want that to happen can't have enough leverage on him, but that they can force those things to happen. And the only way to ensure that product fails, even though he knows it's going to fail, is to let it be released. And he has to do his job as CEO, and he has to talk about how great and wonderful and awesome it is. But he doesn't have absolute autocratic authority on everything. He ultimately has to balance all of his board members, and some of his board members are loyal and trustworthy. Some of them are using him. They're trying to use him transactionally. But many of the actions that he has to take, it's like if he wanted to do action XYZ, he wouldn't be able to do action XYZ. But he has some of these troublesome board members who want him to do ABC, and A and B happen to look a lot like X and Y. So he can do A and B while he's also managing X and Y to ensure he winds up at Z and not C. But he has to do these things because he has the political the political weight that he has to manage, the different players that he has to structure here. So so it could have been that he has certain board members who are bloodthirsty and want the destruction of the Iran. They want to glass Iran so they can pursue the Greater Israel Project. He wants to manage the Iran problem in the way that we've been talking about. So you have to go down the road toward the glass Iran outcome and make it look like you're going to the glass Iran outcome, but you're doing it to get to the manage it the way that we're talking about.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's exactly. This is kind of the way I've described it similarly, but it's a very good way. And I think I had a conversation with Joaquin about this kind of thing, and at some point in the recent past, and put these ideas in his head. And he brought that up, I think, the last time he and I talked, and I said, yes, you have this problem. I also said that sometimes you give your opponents, your domestic political opponents, everything they want. And then they're still not very happy because then it doesn't turn out. Then Trump gets to wash his hands of it. Go, see, I told you this wasn't going to work.
Exactly.
And I'll give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The 12-day war last year was clearly a Netanyahu-led project that Trump had to go along with. He went along with it because he could get something out of that he wanted. One, he gets to prove to the world that the neocons are freaking crazy. He gets to prove that the Likudniks in Israel are freaking crazy. He gets to prove that there's something going on between Iran or the IRGC and City of London, which comes out of the fake negotiations and the this and all, and their refusal to accept the fact that they lost their nuclear weapons program, even though they had been set back hard, right? There was all of this that went on, and at the end of the day, by letting Israel get punched in the mouth, we get to find out that Iron Dome isn't very good. And what happens? Bibi is taken down a peg. Trump becomes the most powerful and most popular politician in Israel. And so now he can set Israeli policy. Now, when you're thinking like, this is the problem is this, we get down to the delusional rant I went on earlier, the schizophrenia rant that I went on earlier. Like, look, folks, if you still want to believe that Donald Trump is some random dude that just does random things after all this other evidence to the contrary, that's you denying reality. And maybe we should, get you in with a psychiatrist and get you some appropriate medication or therapy or something. I don't know, but we
Funny
have
you should mention
something
that,
has
Tom.
to be done here. And
Funny
I
you
have
should
been
mention
saying
that.
for quite a while. I'm like, I'd like to get rid of the welfare warfare state. I'd like to always get rid of the welfare state and replace it with, I'd be happy to put some tax money towards national therapy for. Let's make a bull market in therapists, because a lot of people just need someone to rant at and not have a rant at Donald Trump on Twitter, so that we can move forward and get and start healing, or start watching the world heal, because the world's not going to heal until these people actually admit that they're schizophrenic, have their mimetic collapses where they go, oh my God, shit, Trump actually is a strategic genius. Because the world didn't end. I can't tell you how many times in the last 6 months, 9 months, I've had people look at me and go and say, like, I don't understand. Why did the world not melt down when the yen carry trade unwound? And I'm like, maybe because the whole fear of the yen carry trade unwinding was all bullshit. Maybe it was never a thing. Maybe it was always going to be, it was going to cost London a lot of money. It was going to cost Paris a lot of money. It was going to cost Luxembourg a lot of money, or the Caymans, but it wasn't ever going to cost us a lot of money. Maybe, just maybe, the Japanese were unwinding the yen carry trade on purpose in order to put pressure on the euro-dollar system and unwind it, because the Bank of Japan was the piggy bank of the euro-dollar system for all these years. Now we're unwinding that. So the world didn't melt down. I don't understand. Well, maybe it's because you were gaslit by morons, and you're too arrogant to believe that you weren't gaslit.
There's actually a medical.
Sorry, I
there's
don't know
actually
what
a
else
medical
to tell
term for
you,
this.
but that's my read. And I don't want.
Tom, I don't know if you-
hate to be harsh and cruel, but some of these people were my friends. I'm like, but if you want me to be your friend, or you know how it comes, I give it to you loud and dirty, as hard as possible, because you're my friend and I respect you, and I don't want you to be stupid. Because when I'm stupid, my friends yell at me. It's what I expect them to yell at me. You know, I don't expect my wife to like coddle me when I'm, losing all my money buying hookers and blow. It doesn't make, you know what I mean? She's going to like take a baseball bat and beat me upside the head with it. So got news for you. No, you were wrong. The end carry trade, you were just gaslit. Get over yourself. Or whatever it is. Like, there's 100 different moments like that. Like that the Israelis were going to, like, the first 3 weeks of the war, all I heard from people was that, oh my God, we're going to get the Samson option, and the crazy Israelis are going to blow up the world because every day 20 more AI generated missiles hit Tel Aviv. And they believe this shit. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, that's the problem we're dealing with. We're not dealing with people who are dealing with reality. They are willfully refusing to deal with reality because their misery is comfortable, because their schizophrenia is comfortable, because their demoralization is comfortable. This is a very, very real problem. Whereas all we really have to keep doing is just saying, no, that's not what's happening. This is what's happening. Well, that's 27D chess. No, that's people doing basic strategic analysis of how they're going to prosecute national interest. I mean, I'm sorry if that's too complicated for you. Go back to eating crayons. I hear the lime green ones are tasty. Like,
that's what I like.
you're now I can't hear you, Jason.
Oh, really?
Oh boy, I can hear him.
Maybe I have to leave the chat again because there's something wrong with my talk now.
Can you hear me now?
Nope. I'll leave and come back. You guys do your thing.
Okay. Go.
Someone in the chat here, Ninja of Spades, said, who's a Patriot, by the way, Patriot spotted, said, I don't think many people see this higher level game. They're ball watchers. That is such a good observation. As the resident sports ball expert here, this is a phenomenon I've identified. I mean, lots of people have identified, like ball watchers is a term for a reason. It's the people when you're watching a sporting event, you're watching, hockey for Tom, or football or soccer, any of these sports, particularly the sports that involve lots of moving pieces happening at the same time. You have the people who will watch the game on TV and they just watch wherever the ball is going. Like in basketball, they're just following the ball. They're in football, they're watching the quarterback while he's holding the ball, and then they're watching where the ball flies to when he throws at someone. But the people who are actually calling the plays or setting up the defense or setting up the attack or whatever it is, whatever the sport is, they are they're engaged in strategy like warfare. So they're moving different pieces off the ball, on the ball, off the ball, against the ball to manipulate the opposing defense, to pick out their tendencies, and then so there's a larger meta game that's happening while you're watching it. The people who are inexperienced, they just watch the ball the whole time. So they will come away with a totally different perspective of how the game was played than the people who are maybe, let's say, smarter, maybe more experienced.
More experienced, sophisticated. The hardest thing teaching people how to watch a game of hockey is to realize that half the players you have to know where the other players are on the ice and they're off camera.
Right.
You have to know that left winger is coming up the or that the defenseman is going to come into the play, because you know that this team plays this particular way, and this is not a 2-on-2, this is a 4-on-2, because they're activating the defense or whatever it's going to be. And then I've done this 1,000 times. I start standing up out of my chair and like, oh my freaking God, and everybody else was like, huh? What are you talking about? I'm like, dude, like, you don't understand. There's about to be an unbelievable scoring opportunity. And I'm like, my sphincter is getting like, it's like.
Or in football, you might see they might throw away a bunch of running plays intentionally to prime the opposing safety, so that when he sees this formation, he sees this motion, he starts cheating down. So you have a route adjustment on the fly and you can hit him over the top. There's all these sorts of things that are happening, and it's the game that's happening that's not immediately around the ball. Trump is an absolute master at forcing everyone to look at the ball. Look at the ball, look at the ball, look at the ball, look at the ball. Don't look at what else is happening around here.
Right. Pay no attention to these 14 other plans that I have in motion over there. And he's a very instinctual guy. He has a strategic plan. His tactics are insane.
Yes.
Because Donald Trump is a high variance, no limit Texas Hold'em player.
He's a drunken master.
That too. That's another
Yeah.
way of putting it. If you're into martial arts, he's a drunken master. If you're into poker, I've decided to use No Limit Texas Hold'em as the best way to describe what's going on. Because in order to be a good Texas Hold'em player, not only do you have to play the game you're comfortable playing. Do you play tight? Do you play loose? Do you play this? Do you play that? You have to be able to shift your game when your opponents start to realize that you're playing a particular way, and you have to keep them on edge. You have to be a great Texas, especially no limit Texas Hold'em player. You have to know exactly when to put a guy on a hand and then force him into a bad bet every freaking time. And Donald Trump understands the time compression of Texas Hold'em in a way that other people don't understand. And he's a high variance player. He's a Doyle Brunson. He's the Gus Hansen. If you used to watch the World Series of Poker 20 years ago, there was a guy by the name of Gus Hansen who would splash every freaking pot. Guy would play 5-7 offsuit and bet it like it was a pair of aces. And you're like watching him just masterfully psychologically manipulate the board until he finally did have his favorite hand, which would be like suited connectors, like an 8-9 of spades, and then and then clean a guy out when he hits a straight flush draw. Because the other guy's sitting on a set of aces or a set of kings or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. He's got him dead to rights. And that's when he takes them for all their money.
Well, I think that's
Trump and the other thing about Trump is you have to realize is that Trump is a guy sitting at the highest of high stakes Texas Hold'em, and he has infinite rebuys.
Yes.
He can literally put $5 billion on the table and push all in on crap cards. Not that he ever has crap cards because he's the American president, so he always gets at least one ace down. When you understand that he always has a better hand than everybody else by definition, and he has infinite rebuys, that guy can push $5 billion onto the friggin' on the $250,000 big blind Texas Hold'em table and not give a shit. Whereas everybody else has to conserve, and Iran is very careful about conserving their stack, playing tight, doing what they need to do, manipulating, and no offense to the Iranians, they played the game well with what they had. They schmoozed their other benefactors at the table who were kicking them under the table. Don't get involved in that hand with Trump. He's got you dominated. Like, you know what I mean? Like the British were the Bank of England clearly was their rebuy, right? They were doing it for years, and it's over now. That's gone. Trump's taking out their ability to finance Iran. Iran, just as Victor Davis Hanson has been saying, like nonstop for the last month, we blew up $1 trillion worth of investment in their defense and their war strategy, and we blew it up in a weekend for $50 billion. It's over. Now, the big question is, as Jason pointed out earlier, or as other people pointed out, is he winning militarily and strategically and tactically, and is he losing the wider strategic war? That's a good question.
Let's talk about that for a second.
It may be an open-ended question, but yeah, let's talk about.
Well, let's talk about the domestic policy for a second, right? Because now, whenever we end up talking about this, Trump's down in the polls, Trump's favorability is down. Well, this is your gimme. Everything that Trump does, the what's the new announcement?
SPLC, right? The Southern Law Poverty,
right? Uncovering funding things and all these other things, and everyone's like, not good enough. We knew that from before. Whatever. I said this about the Epstein files, right? Like, my question wasn't would Donald Trump release them? It's like, when would he release them? Because he's like, look, I have them. I can release them whenever I dang well please. I don't have to do it when you tell me to. Like, this whole chimp out mentality that overtook the right for a bit is deterious. Because if you honestly think for a second that you chimping on X is going to change global change the mind of the White House for massive domestic policy or global politics, you're out your dang mind. It's like you're saying, Tom, it's like you've lost grip with reality. Right. I know we all have, like, it's nice. You have 20,000 followers. You're way bigger than me, and you're way more important, and you got a bigger share of the attention economy than I ever will. Congratulations. You know what that means? Nothing.
Nothing.
It means nothing. We've been allowed to LARP. I'm going to go on a rant here, Matt. So give me a
Sure.
second. We've been allowed to LARP successfully for at least the last 5 to 6 years, perhaps even longer, as posing and presenting ourselves as the next new media and all that stuff, right? Heck, even Elon Musk even gave us the gauntlet saying, on X, you are the media now. You can control these narratives. You can do things with it. And you know what blew my mind, Tom, is right after Trump's victory, and everyone was like at peak, right? Like, all right, let's go. What are we doing? What are we saying? Where are we going? Right? I'll be a good little soldier. I don't even care about the accolades. I'll just help bring up some ideas and help present them. Whatever you need. And everyone turned around and started talking about Wife Jack. Wife Jack. It was a meme. And I was like, great. So we're not serious and we're all screwed. That's it. That was the end of the list.
By February 1st, it was, why haven't you arrested anybody? Just arrest somebody, for God's sakes.
Oh, where's the deportation numbers? And okay, then flash forward to 2026 or 2026. They started upping the deportations, and we got a lot of like, not that way, peoples. Right, saying, "Oh wait, but we don't like ICE being actually authoritarian and doing their job." Oh wait, someone got some silly person got shot because they went to a protest with a gun. Well, hang on a second. What are we turning into as a people? I'm like, are you okay? So, clown world, you're not serious. Why should you get anything good? Like, why do you deserve anything good? By the way, and people sometimes forget this. Sorry, Tom, and I'll throw this to you. I'm a Canadian living in Australia. I live in socialist hellhole crazy land. Okay, well, I live in retard maxing world right now, where now, thankfully, all this crisis is finally uncovering that Australia's been selling its fuel at rebate to Japan and then buying it back from them. Okay, a big kerfuffle came about the oil refinery plant catching fire, and everyone thought it was industrial sabotage. Like, I don't think so. I think it was being held together by duct tape and dreams. And as soon as they upped production, it caught fire, and everyone was like, "What do we do?" And like, I don't know. Throw a kangaroo at it. I don't know. What are you going to do? Right. What's being revealed in all these subsidiary places, Canada, Australia, and many others, is like there is no leadership. This is the plan was to destroy the entire thing and just repopulate it with Chinese or whoever, and then run the numbers on them. Basically, the idea was we're going to create Singapore. The entire world is going to become Singapore, and you're just going to get along and like it. And if you don't, well, we'll just throw you in jail or get rid of you. And that was it. That was the plan. And in many places of the world, like where I'm living, that's still the plan. They're still going ahead with it. Carte blanche. They want this lockdown. They want this energy crisis. They want it so dang bad, because then they'll get to lock everyone down and print out money and and cook the books and then blame everything on big bad orange man Trump. Right. And I cannot understand for 1 second if I was American. We had this conversation, Matt, in a VC not too long ago, and someone was railing on about it. And you asked me, "Hey, Jason, all the problems with Trump and stuff like that. Would you take a Donald Trump over your current leadership in Australia?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'd break the button. I would break the dang button."
I'd break the.
Are you kidding me?
I would break the Skinner box button, hurting somebody to get. No, make him suffer. I want Trump. Like what?
Not even an option.
Attach the electrodes to my own balls, and I'm still smashing
I'll put the electrodes on me, and I'll hit the Skinner box button until my balls explode.
Ask a Canadian about Carney. It's like, would you rather have Donald Trump than like Carney, who trooned his own kid? Yes. I would much rather that than the creature who worked for the Bank of England for long. And honestly, he's creepy. We used to make fun of Stephen Harper being creepy. Carney's taking the cake. His
name's freaking Carney. I mean, he's literally named Carney.
Small hand, smells like cabbage. The whole 9 yards. the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's really. You're completely correct. And yes, they wanted the endless wave of poo. That was the endless river of poo. They were going to turn every river in the world into the Ganges, for Christ's sake. But
do you know about the flesh-eating turtles in the Ganges?
No.
Oh, okay. So real quick, just total sidebar.
Sure. Okay.
In the Ganges, the locals, when they died, the people would just put them into the river. And they were having a problem of all these bloated bodies starting to cause issues, and like people were getting sick, and the water, you can imagine. So they came in with a bunch of flesh-eating turtles that they released into the Ganges to eat all of the bodies. This project failed for two reasons. One, the flesh-eating turtles began dying because the water quality was so bad. And two, the locals began capturing and eating the flesh-eating turtles who were feeding on their bloated, decaying relatives. Like the caliber of person that the Indians that we've met, that we've encountered, are the good ones. We haven't even begun to reach the levels of just horror that exist in that part of the world. Hopefully no one was eating.
Indians with monosyllabic last names, good. Indians with
yeah, right. Once you get to like 13 syllables, that's when you know that it's like
once you feel like you're in once you feel like you're in the Star Wars cantina, and he's like, "Oh, I got that one. I have that one." That's
I mean, oh my God! But the I don't know. Not even sure.
Sorry, but so basically, the circling the wagons is getting back to domestic policy, right?
Oh yeah,
Trump and domestic. Because I'll throw this in the arena. I think that up to on the list of Trump's things to do is to completely destroy the Democratic Party, to make it essentially a hollowed out thing, right? To make it a kayfabe party, right? And for people, I hear this a lot online too. It's very smart people. We'll always talk about the uni party, right? This has been the narrative for a long time. There's a uni party, and I don't disagree. I think that's true to a certain degree, especially in British politics, where the left and the right, conservative versus liberal, it's the same thing. It's just a different guy. Oh, you like this one now? Oh, how about this one, right? So the results are always the same, and I think that's true. But if you're running with that idea, then the Democratic Party is not the enemy. Or the Democrat and Republicans are the same enemy, right? I think this is where you get a lot of post-libertarian brain that's still caught in libertarian world, right? Where state equals bad across the board. That's it. That's all, right? I take the morals out of it and only just looking at, well, what's the direction? What are they most likely to do, and who's funding them? Right. And the Democratic Party has been on the receiving end of City of London money for at least the last 40 since the Clintons, really. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Direct ties to there. So I think the Trump while he's doing this war against the City of London, the other directive would be to destroy the Democratic Party completely and totally, to make it a permanent outgroup, to crush its funding. And if there's a Democrat president ever in the future, that's just a Republican wearing it with a D on his chest, or a MAGA guy with a D on his chest.
Well, what we're dealing here, you're right, and the way you do that is, of course, you go after all the public money and all of the. He went after all the public money. He's done yeoman's work getting rid of the public money. Now he's going after the fake charity money. That's the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's the Catholic Church and Catholic Charities. That's the Red Cross. That's the Mormon Church, right? All in the last 10 days.
And the Catholics.
That's what I said. The Catholics. I said the Catholics, Catholic Charities in particular, the Red Cross, all of that. So he's clearly started that campaign. He's taken on the Pope, right? Who's the product of Chicago machine politics, right? For Christ's sake, just like the 10 Downing Street candidate named Barack Obama. There is a plan here. It's very, very strategic. It's very, very much he has a Gantt chart of in what order is he going after these things. And in Trump's mind, he has to do them in this order. You can disagree with him about the order. That's fine. We can argue whether or not he's got the time to do it in this order and what. Fine. But let's do it honestly. Let's not do it like faggots like Robert Barnes, who's clearly, just the City of London, who's now who probably owes so much money to Polymarket that he's owned and operated by I mean, seriously, I don't know, but I mean, come on, dude, it makes sense that that guy is what he is. He could also always have been a gatekeeper, because it's interesting about my position and where I've been over the last 8 years, 8.5 years, I've been doing Gold Goats and Guns. As I've moved in, as I've gained a little bit of notoriety, I picked somebody up who's kind of outside of my league. Like David Stockman was my 4th patron, for example, right? And then right after that, I start writing for Strategic Culture Foundation because I need the money. I know it's a Russian think tank or it's an FSB run think tank. I know that. I don't give a shit. They pay $150 an article. That was more than I was making anywhere else. Okay. Alistair Crook. And then, get into that whole pro-Russian, vaguely, anti-American, thing, the typical libertarian thing. Start picking up like people like, I don't know, Patrick Henningsen. They're all inviting me over to go visit Moscow. And then, another one and another one, and then Larry Johnson. These guys are all CIA. Robert Barnes was on my podcast twice. Second time we got done with the podcast, sounded like we were on good terms. Ghosted me for 4 years. Didn't come back to me didn't come back and didn't say a word to me until November. Height of the campaign to oust Trump during the shutdown over the Epstein files. And then just starts, lambasting me randomly. I hadn't spoken to Robert Barnes in 4 years, 3 years. All of a sudden, he's going after me. This one's going after me. That one's going. I'm like, oh, interesting. I'm like, oh, so noted. But I had already made Thomas Massey. I think Rand Paul's been a part of that group the entire time as well. Like you start going through the whole thing and you realize at the end of the day, like almost everybody who's like kind of walked into your life. Oh yeah, I haven't even gotten to the Groiper patrol that nearly destroyed my private server last year during the 12-day war. I haven't gotten into the current version of that, which I already nipped in the butt. Like this shit's everywhere. And, everybody's getting, at some point they were like, well, if we can co-opt him, then we can take a potential ally of Trump off the board because they were always thinking in the future. They've already scoped everybody out. There's a file on everybody. All of us have got a file. Every one of us. I mean, it may be on the intern's desk, but at some point, then it goes to the next guy, to the section chief's desk, and then to the next guy's desk. And then at some point, there's going to be some guy at the end of my driveway who shouldn't be there. And then he's going to get ventilated.
Well, it's
right
interesting.
Because
right?
off camera on that tree right over there is a little sign that says, if you can read this, you're in range.
It's interesting you say this, Tom, because remember when I started talking about this through a series of interviews, all of a sudden my ex stuff started blowing up and my DM started blowing up, and I got spooked because it's hard to put your finger on it. It's like I couldn't like share one. I could share a DM and be like, and people would look at like, well, that doesn't mean anything. I'm like, yeah, but it's all about the timing. Like everything came at once, right? And all of a sudden, when you're like, okay, why am I getting followed by some certain people? And why all of a sudden am I getting DMs? And why like what is going on here, right? And you're like, oh, I'm suddenly a person like I'm not me, like not me the human being, but it's like suddenly I said something that sparked an interest, right? And now it's like there's a bunch of people trying to feel me out and say, where exactly are you? Where are you at? And it's spooky.
You guys know me. I lay everything on the freaking table, and I get in trouble for it all the time. But I don't care. Like you can't scare me. Work on it. Like this is my war face, right? Straight from Full Metal Jacket. It's like, you don't scare me. Work on it because I'm not going anywhere. I realized a long time. I realized it was for me the defining moment for me was when Donald Trump sends Elon Musk out to go after Keir Starmer during the transition to go after Keir Starmer over the Pakistani rape gangs. I'm like, oh, he knows. He knows. Okay. I mean, Jason is a hell of a, he's a hell of a man. Sorry. So
it's the broad shoulders,
Okay. But it's the very sexy man voice. Come on, let's not. Sorry.
With the thing we mentioned earlier, Tom, about how Trump he's playing at this no limit. table, and he has infinite buy-ins. But the only way not the only way, but like a major, I guess, a failure mode with that model is that if the people who voted for him, the people who ostensibly have supported him into power, they played their role in that. If they melt down and lose their shit every time he busts out. Like part of the thing here is that he's got to be able to bust out. In order for that strategy to be effective, you have to be able to bust out, knowing that you can rebuy. That's what enables you to play the game.
Keep playing the game. Yeah.
And frankly, like right now, his greatest vulnerability is quite literally the people who voted for him. That's his greatest political vulnerability right now is
agreed.
Will they not stay bought into the process?
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a really important point. I noted it on July 13th, 2024, about 2 hours after Trump got shot, that they were already starting the process of trying to cleave off the libertarians. Okay. I mean, the London went into overdrive the minute they missed.
And the other thing,
I saw it then, and I'm like, and then they've just been chopping. They've been just chopping all little pieces here and slices here and there ever since. Go ahead.
John Doyle has made this point a lot that initially it was you can't support Trump. You need to be terrified and horrified and find Trump repellent because he's Hitler reincarnate. He's Mango Mussolini. He's a horrible authoritarian dictator. After they missed, it flipped to you can't support Trump because he's a cuck for the Jews, because he'll never be as right-wing as you. He'll never be as based as you. It's the same end goal. It's the same end result.
Yep.
And there's this whole thing. This is why I said I was going to bristle when Jason brought up the domestic policy thing, because this is something I've harped on for a long time. Just like the libertarian public versus private distinction is it's only valid at a certain level of resolution. Like it's useful as in terms of like speech, but it's not an actual hard and fast boundary. The same thing with foreign and domestic policy. There isn't something that's domestic policy that's not foreign. There isn't something that's foreign that's not domestic. That's the nature of the world that we live in now.
Right.
So the fact that and lots of people have identified this, that Trump domestically now with actions here focused on stuff at home, the colloquial use of domestically, he's much less powerful there than he is outside the borders.
Right.
So to whatever extent stuff can be done here at home, like that's where everyone else can get involved. Like he's clearly refashioning the global order across a whole bunch of different vectors. If those refashionings are going to take root, it's going to be because everyone else begins adapting their behavior around the new way of doing things.
That's right.
That's the only way it can be successful. He can go out and he can clear the field, and he can get a long ways in terms of moving us down the field. But ultimately, it's going to be everybody turning and just rowing with him. It just becomes the new normal. You just accept the new normal versus constantly kicking and getting dragged screaming along the pathway the whole time because it's not playing out the way that you imagined it when you played with your action figures before you logged on to start posting.
No, you're absolutely right, and Matt, it's a really good point. And the way I've been putting it for a long time is that, look, we have a completely and utterly oppositional and dysfunctional legislature, and we have a mostly dysfunctional and oppositional judiciary. The judiciary is operating better, but not good enough, because John Roberts is clearly slow walking everything that the Supreme Court. I mean, perfect example is today. They've leapfrogged the Voting Rights Act decision in terms of they're handing down decisions on things they did oral arguments for in February. The Voting Rights Act thing was done back in October, and he's waiting for the dissent to be written or to be turned in. He can hand down the decision, and they can publish the dissent whenever the fuck they want to. He's not doing so. So if I'm this is where at a certain point, and by the way, just to remind everybody, the official term is creamsicle Mussolini. Just okay. This is where what they're trying to do. The strategy at home is clearly with the whole no kings thing, with all of the messaging, the 25th Amendment stuff, the take the nuclear tools away from Trump last weekend because he's a crazy man. I'm like, no, Larry Johnson, you're just a dumb old fucking drunk who still works for the CIA. That's all it is, man.
It's like when they had
It's
that
not
story
that
of Trump like trying to wrestle away the
but whatever.
wheel on the beast, his limo.
Clearly,
They said he, like,
what our
lurched
problem
across.
is here is that they're trying to turn Trump into the Caesar. They're trying to destroy what's left of the republic as a legal entity to force him to grab control of power and then do something unprecedented in American history. And from London's perspective, that's a strategic win because then you have won the ideological war that we, the people, cannot enshrine and ordain a constitution that's stronger than the hereditary powers of the kings and the high table or whatever, Davos or whatever. That is the ideological fight that we're engaged in here. We're engaged in a fight between we, the people, versus they, the kings. And that's what it is. And you realize that that's why they have to fight this out to the last Ukrainian in Ukraine. That's why the IRGC doesn't have any options but to fight it out to the last, Durga Jihad idiot in fucking Tehran. Because for those guys, look, if they surrender, they're all going to get killed. The Iranian people are going to string them up by their gonads and feed them to, well, the dogs they don't have because they're all Muslims, so they don't have dogs because they're not real. I mean, I'm sorry. At the end of the day, I'm like, anybody who doesn't like dogs, if you have a religion that says dogs are bad, your religion sucks. I mean, that's it. Like, dogs are the greatest. We created the greatest animal on the planet to allow us to deal with our consciousness and everything else. Dogs are our greatest creation. Fuck Artemis too. Like, it's the dog. But without the dog, there is no civilization.
Just
over
wait till we
1,000
domesticate
years.
the bears.
That's where the Russians come in. Over 1,000 years of theological argument has been reduced down to, like, you don't like dogs.
Yeah, right.
You don't like dogs. Yeah,
should have just done that at
I mean, that's
like,
way. How we went? Yeah, well, we're just like, let's convene the council of all the. Yeah, which ones like dogs? Okay, you guys get to stay. Everybody else over there. Like, over there. There's some Kool-Aid. Take a shower. Like, I'm sorry.
I want to put this.
You don't get a vote in this. This is important. We don't evolve as a species to where we are today without the man-dog hunting pack. We don't. These people are anti-civilizational at their core. I'm sorry if this outs me as I'm sorry if I just issued a fatwa against myself. I don't care. Like, it's otherworldly to me. It really is. I don't understand it. And maybe I'm delusional. I don't think so, but it's not even like I love my dog too much. Like, it's just not real. You can't farm anything other than goats without freaking dogs. Like, you can't do anything without dogs. Like, I mean, seriously, like, think about what we use dogs for. We tame the planet with these beautiful freaking creatures, and they love us unconditionally, even though we don't deserve it.
Let me put this on the screen just briefly, just to put a tack in what's at stake domestically. This is from the Morse report.
Jason's like, let's get off of this and move on back to policy.
Oh, no. I mean, we can talk about. I'm not a dog guy. I'm a cat person. So
I know. I mean this sincerely. This is something fundamentally wrong with the way these people think. Like, I'm sorry, they've got bad code if they don't like dogs. Like, I'm sorry, they have bad code. Go ahead.
Morse report reported this. This is just to kind of give people an idea of what's at stake here, both for your midterms and I think going forward, right? So top Democrat political consultant and campaign strategist James Carville just stated on the left-wing Policon podcast that when the Democrats regain power, they plan to grant statehood to Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, so the Democrats can unlock 4 extra seats in the Senate, pack the U.S. Supreme Court from 9 justices up to 13 justices, adding another 4 left-wing justices to the court, reopen the U.S.-Mexico border and grant mass amnesty to every single alien currently inside of the United States, and his advice to Democrat politicians, don't run on it, don't talk about it, just do it. So just to kind of put a pin in the PANICAN the American PANICAN cramp. Yeah, good.
You're saying that he's saying Don't
Now I can't
you
hear
don't
now.
need to constantly you don't need to be constantly like updating your Twitter followers and like telling them exactly what's happening. You don't need to be giving them constant updates about exactly what you're doing and exactly what your plans are, constantly reassuring them that everything is okay. He's not advising that.
No, he's actually advising to them for them to do this new thing called lying.
Wow. Wow, imagine.
He's basically saying, just lie to people. You can just lie to people about what you're running on, and then just make sure you do this when you get in. Now, it's interesting enough, of course, he said this publicly, right? So this is the hubris. Do we know this is true? Is this part of the PSYOP? Is this Democrat 15 level chess? I don't know, but certainly it does sound like things that they have talked about or threatened in the past. So if nothing else, even if Carville's working on both sides now, maybe Carville's trying to gin up the support for Trump. I don't know.
No,
but,
he's not.
But
He's
Carville.
He's Carville. There's no hope for that guy. There's no known cure, as the phrase would go. No, he's just saying what needs to be said. It's mask off now. It's now that's a call to arms. Okay, for the next phase of the color revolution. We have been in a slow rolling color revolution here in the United States for about 10 years now. Just like we were in a slow rolling color revolution back in the 1840s that culminated in the recent unpleasantness, which I think is the best way to describe the war between the states. And I think war between the states in the end is the most balanced. Or how about the war to prevent recolonization? Right. So Carville's just saying, just like all these assets that are out there now, again, downstream of what I said about Larry Johnson, then this is District 6 and everything else that they've been saying. And this has been all of this stuff. When you have Robert Barnes and Alex Jones out there screaming, well, you've got to take JD Vance just needs to take Trump and put him in a room and declare himself president. Like, okay, whatever. Like, they're just panicking. They're the ones who are panicking. When James Carville has to come out and say that because he has no ability anymore to hold back what's inside of him, he knows what the internal polling numbers are. Okay, they're not publishing polls anymore. Now we have Polymarket acting like a news source on Twitter. Breaking, blah, 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 blah. Like every other goddamn shitty third-rate account on Twitter. Like that's Polymarket. But that's the British trying to turn Polymarket into the news feed to then shape the narrative through the odds. And all they got to do is like create an odds on some damn stupid thing, dump $5 million into it and say, look, 85% odds of this occurring. Like, it's not hard, folks.
It's where the smart money's going. Look at look where the money's going.
It's got the imprimatur of the free market. Science, numbers. Like, that's why they love polling. Polling is just fake science. It's all it is. Like, and it's all the scientism masquerading as something other than gaslighting. But the truth of the matter is that the people are this. Matt's point originally is the most salient one, which is that Trump's biggest vulnerability is his own base that's being carved up and driven insane, and that's what we have to guard against as best as possible. That's why he has to put wins on the board that are durable, and that's why he has to walk up the escalatory ladder with the IRGC in Iran and then win or go home. One of the things I've been trying to really figure out here is whether or not he has to deal with a war powers situation in 8 days. I was talking with Halsey English about an hour before we went on. We were texting back and forth, and I brought this up to him. He said, look, Trump is operating under the authorization for the use of military force in regards to the global war on terror. The IRGC and all of its proxies have been designated as foreign terrorist organizations. So he's perfectly within his legal right under that. So unless our Congress wants to, remove the authorization of use of military force, then the War Powers Act, he's not operating under the War Powers Act. This is why, for example, Thomas Massey, the great libertarian, was trying to strip him of the ability to operate under the authorization of the use of military force, which would then force him to then invoke the War Powers Act, so then they could put a time limit on his operation here. Again, further proving that I was right about that guy all the way down the line. Works for City of London. Like simply put, not a libertarian. Most of the libertarians, most of the prominent libertarians are too stupid to be chills for anybody else, or they're too self-interested. I know them personally. And since, they all threw me under the bus when I went to speak at the Mises Institute, fuck them. Not a goddamn one of them that has not a goddamn one of them has my respect anymore, and I don't give a shit. So Tom Woods can go fuck himself. He likes money more than he likes being free. The only one I still have any respect for whatsoever is Bob Murphy. Everybody else there, every one of them. With the exception of Lou Rockwell, because he's an old man trapped in his own body. But everybody else, no. Explain to me how they're not water carriers for the very people who we've been fighting for 250 years. Explain it to me like I'm 5. Like, explain it to me like I eat crayons.
You're in the presence of one of the post-libertarian movement heads. That happened a few years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Who attracted all the attention.
And worse than that, like, then I have to deal with guys, guys who should know better. Like, it's sad to say, like Pete Canones, who went down the whole Hitler was right thing. Like, I'm sorry, guys, no. Like, it's not one or we don't flip from stem to stern. We don't substitute one addiction or one bit of oppositional defiance disorder and then swing to the other pendulum. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. You can read history however you want to falsify whatever version of history you think you have, or you can actually assess all the information and go, it's a big mess. And history is just a bunch of shit people did. And
I'll just say this briefly. I still consider Pete Quinones a friend.
So do I.
He's always, and
so do I.
I'm just saying this. I'm just saying this publicly because I know things get clipped and said. So I just want to be. This is very important.
This is very important.
I know Matt and I have had these conversations, especially when Matt's been taking a lot of the slings and arrows. I took some heat, but I've kind of gone off and did my own thing. So one thing we try to do.
It was just distressing to me to have people coming after me and say, "How can you be X, Y, and Z and not deal with the Jews?" I'm like, I am dealing with the Jews exactly to the level in which that they should be dealt with. You're the one who's like lost your mind. Sorry. And then when you come after me publicly on Twitter and, you still hang out with that freaking retard Stormy Waters, like, we have a problem. We have a fundamental problem. We have a guy who, you're following a guy who refuses to put any skin in the game. Put his real name out there? Put his real face out there? I'm sorry. If you're not going to do that, then you're not real. You don't have any skin in the game. You're not getting phone calls in the middle of the night from people telling you we're watching you. You're not getting any of that. You're not getting handled by 14 or 15 different intelligence agents and this, that, and everything else. You're not playing this game. Who the fuck do you think you are? Like, seriously, everybody needs to stop to really think about this stuff. The fact that these things are happening tells you that we're winning hard. And we should love every second of it, and we should embrace it, and we should get harder and figure out what other war face we can put on. And then get up in the next morning and do battle again, because that's the only way we're going to win. You have them on the run. When you have your enemy on the run, you snipe at their heels. Right?
Like you said, when you mentioned earlier, you talked about how they're like, we've been in this slow burn color revolution. Like, ultimately, the end state of the color revolution is either trying to provoke revolutionary violence or doing the revolutionary violence yourself. But like, as you're going down the list of options here, ideal is you make it organic. You stimulate that revolutionary violence, which is ultimately by cultivating resentment and and a sense of doom and despair. This is a core part of it, is to make you feel like you're constantly losing. There's no hope. It's all falling apart. You have no path forward. The only option is to just completely upset, just flip the chessboard over and have some mass culling event. Like this is this resentful spirit that has taken hold of much of the online right is in spirit. It is revolutionary communism. The actual details of the things you believe, what goes on between your ears doesn't matter. Your posture is the posture of a Bolshevik.
Yes. You know, you're absolutely right. And the way you what I've been saying for a long time, and I need everybody to I'm going to remind everybody what Trump is doing is I've been saying for a while now, there's proof positive that Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump have high-level talks about all of this stuff all the time. Because the only guy who's beaten the color revolution on multiple occasions is Vladimir Putin. And he's done it. He's did it in Georgia. He did it in South Ossetia. He did it in Belarus. He did it in a variety of places. He did it in Kazakhstan right before the January 2022, right before Ukraine touched off. How he did it, of course, was that when the spooks go in to start the process to gin up the false, the inorganic outpouring that then, and they graft on the public outpouring, right? And to try and that's what they did in Minsk, right? They created a fake outrage over the election in Belarus, and then there's enough organic discontent that it feeds itself. And what did Lukashenko do to fix that? Well, he put on a pair of fatigues and was seen driving around in a tank. The spooks don't have real power. Go back to Stratego, right? 9 versus the spy loses, right? But the spy can take out, has his own rule. I don't remember all the rules. When the spy attacks, he can take out a 1 or a 2 or whatever, right? And spies don't have any real power, but they have power as long as they can use the people to neutralize and force the military to stand down at the critical moment. What has Trump been doing with the military? He's been giving it its raison d'etre. He's been giving it the opportunity to go show everybody what they can do. What was that? Everybody who went out there said, that rescue operation, that wasn't a rescue operation. They were going for the nuclear test. No. Even if it was, they still went and got that guy out as well. That was a huge signal. That was, oh, by the way, leave no man behind is real. That's a message to the 2 million GWAT veterans that are all looking for a purpose. And those guys are all draftable now because we raised the draft age or the military service age up to 42. The reason for that, because those guys are itching for a reason to back somebody to fight for an America that they believed in. And they want to know that Donald Trump is a guy worth fighting for. And he's been and that's another big win that Trump has put on the board in Iran. And then he turns around and does that one. He got another one. He got another pilot out this afternoon. And then there was the story about Joe Rogan and the PTSD drugs, the hallucinogens. That was another one. Now, I happen to know a patron and friend of mine who's a psych nurse out in California who was talking to me about the pilot project last year where they were going to start using psychedelics to treat PTSD. He was going to be a part of that. I don't know, haven't spoken to him since, but it was so that is in the VA's new manual under Trump. It's a thing. This is real. They've got to get those guys healthy and ready and raring to go because the Trump administration understands that we are going to go kinetic. We don't know when we're going to go kinetic. And it's going to be kinetic here at home, but they're prepared for it. And all of this stuff and all of the panic and shit about the midterms and this and that and the James Carvilles and all this crap, none of that matters a goddamn bit when the day comes, when it's go time and the spooks try to make their move. That's when the military goes. That's when they're going to, activate their quote unquote sleeper cells and everything else. And there's going to be mass panic. And that's when the GWAT guys are all going to be deputized. I bet you they all wind up becoming honorary sheriffs and like overnight, because sheriffs are constitutional officers here in the United States, the third most powerful person in each state at the county level: governor, lieutenant governor, sheriff. Very important, folks, to understand the political structure of the United States. So I don't know about anybody else, but we've already been thinking these terms. I've been having long chats with Blaine Holt and Ian Burlingame and all of them about this shit for months now, about where this goes. The Trump administration has shown me that they understand that's where we're headed. But we are, like with Iran, with the IRGC, we're going to give them every opportunity to choose life. And if they keep choosing death, we're going to oblige them.
Because also the longer that this gets dragged out, there's actually, especially with a lot of the economic stuff, there's the longer that it's dragged out, if you try to force some of these things, if you try to do some of these things too early, you're not going to make it. Like it being dragged out is actually a feature in a lot of ways. And they also just removed the mandatory flu vaccine for the military, which is another thing. And then interestingly, I don't know if this is going to wind up mattering or not, but one of the Republican candidates for governor in California is a former sheriff. He was the Riverside County sheriff.
I didn't know that, but that's very interesting. I like that. But I find the gubernatorial race in California to be very interesting, because they tried to airdrop, by using his name, Eric Swalwell, into the race, and that wasn't going anywhere, so they had to get rid of Swalwell. And now they want to airdrop, or they were going to try and airdrop Kamala Harris, and apparently that's not going to happen because she doesn't want the job or something. Like, it's going to be two Republicans come out of the ranked choice voting in California. And all the other ones don't want to drop out of the race, and they don't have it. And somebody brought up the really important point the other day. It was like, if you look at all these losers that are running for California governor in the primary, none of them are like long-term politicians. None of them have a rap sheet that they can use against them. They can't. There's nothing to blackmail them on. They're all political neophytes. They're just people. And so there's no blackmail vector on them to get them to go away. They're not dirty. So that means they're all staying in the race thinking, "Wait, I have a chance. I'm pulling 8%." Right?
You know what? I just remembered. Something just popped back into my head that when Peter Thiel was on Joe Rogan a couple of years ago, he talked about California, and he said something basically to the effect of like when he was like, "I'm not leaving California. You're leaving California." And he was talking in terms of like regime change in California, because California is so exceptionally valuable for the United States that they were kind of like, well, why don't you move to Florida or move to, you've got your home in New Zealand or whatever. And he's like, and he said essentially was like, no, California is mine. That just came back to mind for me because Peter Thiel is kind of in a similar way that Trump is sort of like a tip of the spear for a network of influences. Peter Thiel is a similar tip of the spear for a network of influences. He may influence his influencers maybe a little more than Trump does, but they're similar characters in separate domains. And
he's probably still salty about the Silicon Valley Bank.
Yes.
Well, Silicon Valley Bank is a very interesting thing. I've got some stuff I don't. He may be a little salty about that, but Silicon Valley Bank was executed by the Fed for a variety of reasons, having everything to do with the Democratic Party. And the money laundering and the stable coins, and BlackRock was intimately involved in that. That was actually everything I said about Silicon Valley Bank when it happened, my intuition was that the Fed executed the banks on a Friday and kept everybody from being able to get their money out. That was done on purpose. I was right about that.
Peter Thiel said about Silicon Valley Bank.
That was inferential on my part. That was an intuition. That wasn't like, I didn't have data and receipts. I just had that's probably what that is. And then
did you see that CCR was just on the band? John Fogerty was just on Rogan talking about how they put all their money into an offshore account back in the 1970s and that. And it turned out to be a CIA honeypot, is basically a ghost bank. And as soon as he started asking questions, the guy who ran the CEO of the bank had a heart attack. And then 2 weeks later, the whole bank just disappeared. And they're like, "Where's our money?" Like, money? What? What do you mean money?
Yeah.
Peter Thiel said about Silicon Valley Bank that it was a basically like an outpost for the Chinese government to purchase American assets. That was his take on it. Yeah,
that was one aspect. There's a couple other angles on it as well, but yes, agreed. And same thing with that with all of them, as a matter of fact.
Just to answer a quick question here from Chris Hassler. Mironchucknow and Kingpill, I have a question. Guignon and Evola had a philosophical dialogue on the ideal ruling elite, the warrior aristocracy, or the priesthood. In your view, who do you agree with more? Neither. I think both of them have their points, but they don't go far enough. I would be pushing more for the classic Russian symponesia, which is a marriage between state and church, where both have their domains and there's respect for both. It's basically both and is the answer to that question.
And I would also say, like, by ideal ruling elite, the ideal ruling elite for whom, like for what race of people, for what what different peoples have their societies structured according to different priorities. So for some, they're maybe more warrior inclined. Some are going to be more merchant inclined. Some of them more merchant inclined. Some of them are going to be more the priesthood is going to, so it would depend. I think for what Jason says, the symphonia between the marriage between the church and the state, where the emperor is an ordained is actually ordained by the church, but he is also subordinated. He himself has a spiritual father, so in a sense, he is subordinated to the church, but the church has its domain, the state has its domain, and both of them interface in a sympathetic way. That is as the broad outline, and then it's going to be different the way it actually gets implemented based on the race of the nation.
Because it goes back to something you said earlier, Tom. But like, what if you have all these massively powerful people who have no brakes on them except the brakes they put on themselves, which are none. It's the big giant question we always have to ask, right? I don't have to know who Peter Thiel or Elon Musk or any of these guys personally. All you have to ask is that if they have all this power, power and influence, and there is no moral brakes on them, there's nothing else impeding them except themselves or maybe their own little in-group, well, that's where we're screwed. To requote you, is that evil doesn't sleep, it waits.
It's right.
And even if we win, right, or if things get better, or okay, plan A goes away, plan B's now in effect, I can't get someone once said to me, I won't say who, but someone who I greatly respect once told me that all these guys work for the same people, and he's just talking about geopolitical leaders in general, right? And he wasn't talking about the Jays or the this or the that. Right. It's just like there's power behind power. And while I agree that it's really good for us right now, if you're an American especially, to get on plan, right? Just to save your own soul, right? Just like, don't worry about it. If we're wrong, then you're going to have other bigger problems anyway.
Right. Might as well get on board for the big, for whatever version of the big win, or get on board for the big win for very small values of big, right? At the end of the day, right? I agree. Right. But here's the other thing. Let's invoke, you invoked, one of my favorite movies, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Evil doesn't sleep, it waits. Well, I'll invoke another Zack Snyder movie, Nothing Ever Ends. Watchmen. The fight is eternal, folks. It doesn't end with this, with the cycle of history, right? It doesn't end here. We're just trying to push forward into the next stage a little better than we did the last one. That's the whole purpose of heroic fiction. That's the whole purpose of why we tell stories to each other. It's why we do what we do. At the end of the day, we do this, whatever it is. Jason calls it, weather taking. I call it, synthetic analysis. You call it whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. What matters is that we're trying to make sense of what's happening in the world so that we don't make the same mistakes we made the last time. I've told this story before. I'll tell it again because it's a different audience. I don't think I've told this story to you on your show, Jason, which is the simple one. Right after my daughter was born, my wife was talking with her mom. And her mom was complaining about, you're going to spoil our kid. She's, miserable hillbilly from Southern Ohio. And it's like, and Camille said, well, no, I'm going to do these things this way. My wife said, I'm going to do these things this way. And it's how we're going to raise the kid. She says, does that mean I was a bad mother? Being a low self-esteem, narcissistic, emotionally abusive woman from, that she was, that was her first response when confronted with her daughter saying, I'm going to raise my child differently than the way I was raised. And my wife, very in the rare moments of diplomacy that she's had in her life, she said, no, Mom, I endeavor to make different mistakes. That's humanity in a nutshell with each passing cycle of history. We're coming to the culmination, as Martin Armstrong would put it, the culmination of 6 minor eras, and this bigger one, this 310-year cycle or whatever I mark as at the beginning of the foundation of the Bank of England. We're coming to an end of that cycle, for better or for worse. What we do with that is what matters now. What we uncover about that, and the stories we tell ourselves about what this last 300 years of history. If we tell the right stories now, when we set up the new system, that new system will hopefully incorporate that knowledge, some of that knowledge, so that we endeavor to make different mistakes in the next 300 years of human history. And that's the way I've sold it to my daughter, who's one of the Zoomerwaffen. She's one of the burn it all down. It's not, I don't have any stake or agency in this. I'm like, no, actually you do, because your dad's not a boomer. He's not taking his wealth with him. I've already shared all my little wealth I have. I've already shared with her to prove to her that, and put my money on where my mouth is, that we're going to work together through this period as a family, not as, me and my wife, and you have to go on your own. Here's a little bit of money. Go make your way in the world, and leave me alone until I demand that you come and take care of me and my dotage. No, we're going to work together
until the night of the warm pillow comes.
Right. We're going to work together as a family to figure this out as best we can, for better or for worse. And that's the way it's going to be. And, by doing that, I've been able to, repair any of the damage that I did when I was a bad father while we were trying to build this business and I wasn't around. So, that's what we do. We endeavor to make different mistakes. No, I mean, I don't know. It's not anymore. That if that's truth in the fucking plans, dude, well, it's truth in the plan. Better that than, than giving into their nihilistic and narcissistic and abusive crapola that has led us to this moment. They want you to be demoralized. They want you to be schizophrenic. They want you to have ennui. No. Go out there and go, people are awesome. Look at how they persevere through all this crap. And they still build beautiful things. We still go to the freaking moon. We can still build these damn things. As weird and as bad for us as they are, they're still like a freaking miracle when you stop to think about an iPhone, right? But what we do with the technology is what matters, not the technology itself. The technology is neutral.
Yes.
Just a quick question. I think we'll wrap this up. That was a good place, I think, to end it. Hera said, who is this political Steve Jobs? As he holds up his iPhone. Does Tom have his own channel? Well, I think he does. Tom,
I do
let
have
the people know.
I do have a YouTube channel. I don't use it for anything other than as a bandwidth mule for my Patreon. And but we have Patreon / Gold Ghosts and Guns. You can go and hang out and do the thing there, and you can become a member of that community and listen to me rant about most of the same shit over and over and over again, and do serious market analysis and a variety of other things. We publish a newsletter once a month where we look ahead at the world. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at TFL1728, and you go, and hey, I just wrote a blog post for the first time in almost 2 years, like the other day. I know it was kind of scary. I've been, and so yes, I do have many. You can find me everywhere. I'm not hard to find. If you search for me, you will find me. So.
Matt, where are you these days now? You're over on what was it called? Hunch? Is it knee?
Headbutt. Yeah.
Yes.
Punch.me.
Yeah. I got to give a huge shout out to Tom's Patreon. It is 100% worth the.
Are you a patron? I didn't know that.
I am. Yes. Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh my god, dude! Thank you.
I don't get into the Slack at all, but I
Fair.
haven't gotten over the Slack hump. But
Sure.
I don't miss a market report or a newsletter.
Thank you.
There's nobody else who's doing the sort of analysis that Tom is. That's combining the market analysis with the geopolitical analysis and pairing them up and tracking patterns and charts and all that stuff. He is wildly undercharging for it. So get in while you can. Yeah, I do a basically a daily show called the Astrolabe. It used to be a morning show, then it was an afternoon show, then it was a night show, then it is now an early morning show. So it's 5-6 days a week over on Kick is where I stream primarily, and then I just post the recordings. I stream on Rumble as well, and then I post the recordings on Substack and on YouTube. So just look for King Pilled, or the show is the Astrolabe.
I just see LG Brandon Walsh. This is a name I haven't heard for a while. He's
no kidding.
I know. Look at that.
Made himself scarce. You got to come back around more, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. It was an honor.
Tom, Matt, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you both on. Always a pleasure to talk to both, and always a pleasure to make a few panicans. I haven't even used the button that much. Make a few
Dude, it's
panicans.
funny. We did 2.5 hours. I only had half a dozen F-bombs. Only half a dozen.
Panic alert. Panic alert. Panic alert. Panic alert. I should have been using that more. Also, I had this queued up. I never really got down to it. You know, because you were talking before, Tom, about the mental illness of the panic crowd. There's actually been a name for it. There's a medical breakthrough. It's called panicatitis. Help treat panicatitis. For just $1 a day, donate now. We will make sure that money gets to those in need. Perhaps a blanket.
What's really funny is that your panicking thing. I'm like watching that. I'm having flashbacks to the 1990s while I used to watch Cartoon Planet on Cartoon Network, right? And so it's just like it's Andy Merrill and the friggin' in the stupid suit, like dancing, doing the dancing thing. I'm like, that's all I can see. Like that's
Frankie McDonald in that video, sir. He's a Canadian legend. He's
greatest
the
Canadian.
best of us.
Yeah, the greatest Canadian.
Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames and messieurs, brothers and sisters, comrades, and other strangers, thank you so much for tuning in. Well, this is Mironchucknow. I'm Jason Mironchuck, and it's later than you think.